I think I don't know. Let's see. We need to get some people in the chat room here. Welcome to part 2 of the June 8th edition of the High Noon Report with me, Pugs Moran. We had a little bit of a technical glitch in the first attempt at noon. All right, Al is here. Now we need to see if this is working. There was a problem with the chat room, and the chat room is very important. The chat people have to be made happy. If the chat people aren't happy, then what are we really doing this for? All right, so we need somebody else to jump into the chat room, and people got to let me know if this is working. All right, Taronda, she's giving me hand claps. Is it working? I don't. Somebody just say yes, it's working. I can't respond to yup or I don't know what that's in reference to. Yes, it's working. Is it working? I just need to know if it's working. Hi, Byron. Hi, Barney. Hi, Taronda. Hi, Al. Hi, everybody. All right, we'll wait a few minutes for the rest of the people in the chat room to fill in, and then I don't know what was wrong. All right, I guess nobody's complaining, although not showing. Fuck! I don't know what to do, man. It's them. It's a them thing. It's not us. So whatever. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, still not showing. Now, still not showing on what? Now, I'm asking very specific questions. So don't just go, yeah, very specific questions. Not showing on YouTube? Is that what you're saying? Wait, why don't I just go to it? Why am I doing this? Why am I like, putting it on you poor people? All right, let's see. Maybe I'll slip into some time-space continuum as I broadcast into here and watch myself over here. Great. Not even there I am. Okay, let's see here. All right, so I'm on YouTube. There we go. Myself over here. Great. Not even there I am. Okay, let's see here. Geez, that delay really is shitty. All right, hold on. Let's see. Okay, did that change anything? No, it didn't change anything. No. Well, guys, this is something that's going on with one of our partner platforms that help with the, I don't know what this is. It's not the norm, so it's just going to have to be the way we're going to do it today. I don't know what else to tell you. Adam Reyna says, I don't reply to Facebook. Here, let me see. Does everything work? He says, okay, we can still see our chat in YouTube. Okay, so yeah, YouTube looks fine. So let me look on Facebook. Oh, I hate when the show gets delayed like this. No, I'm kind of sobering up. I'll explain more on that in a minute. Here we go. Let me look at the Facebook nonsense. Okay. Wiggy. Yeah, this is a Facebook thing, folks. I'm sorry. Maybe you can all jump in on the YouTube today, but if you're watching on Facebook, yeah, this is a Facebook thing, folks. I'm sorry. Okay, that's the delay. Oh, the delay is so irritating. But if you're watching on Facebook, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, Facebook people. You can jump over on YouTube and it'll all be mixed, but yeah. This appears to be something that Facebook is going through, and they're just going to have to go through it alone because I'm not going to allow it to stop this show because we got a good show planned today. So what do you say we get started? Restart. All right, here we go. Hi, folks. I'm Pugs Moran. This is the High Noon Report. We do this every Monday through Friday, noon to whenever. Headlines, hot topics, trends, current events, and all that stuff. Now, I was telling you a story about how our fine supporter at Sacred Oils, they do the CBDs and the deltas and the gummies and all that kind of stuff. And I was also mentioning about how, well, today is a rainy day, or at least it's supposed to be. It hasn't started raining yet. But I'm banking my entire next 5 hours on the fact that it's going to rain, and it's not raining yet. Anyway, so I got nowhere to go. I got nothing to do, and I've been talking about the CBDs and the deltas and all this kind of stuff. So I did something today just before we signed on as an experiment, and it's why we were 5 minutes late. So what did I do? I got one of these. Look at this. you know what this is? This is a vape pen, just a regular old vape pen that you could buy at a gas station in Texas legally, that you could buy at a CBD store legally, that you could buy at Sacred Oils, Pugs 20. You buy it there, you get a 20% discount. So, I mean, I've been hearing the talk, and we've been talking a little bit about this, and I tried one before that was completely legal, and I was like, "What?" So I wanted to see because I would never. I've done radio shows a little bit drunk, but I've never done, because you're out on location and it's a Bud Light sponsor, and they're like, "Don't," over the course of 4 hours, you're gonna have a couple beers, and by the end of it, you're slurring. But I never enjoyed the idea or what could happen if I were to try and do a radio show while high, because I don't like I don't this. See, I don't know. So my point is, I took one little puff on this thing 15 minutes ago. Totally legal, completely legal. You can walk into any CBD shop, but I'd suggest you walk into Sacred Oils at 13740. Excuse me. And you can purchase this in the state of Texas. It is completely legal. And it is the exact same thing that I would buy in a dispensary in Illinois for free under the Illinois legalized marijuana laws. It's the exact same thing. It's the same product, same brand name, same everything. Except this is apparently, we've got to have a conversation about this, a really deep conversation about this, and it's probably best suited for the nighttime show, the 9 p.m. Pugs and Parker show. Marijuana is legal in Texas if you want it. I mean, it is. It's just what? Don't tell the churches? I mean, I don't understand. I think we all thought that when it came to the legalization issue, that it was probably just going to be a big sweeping announcement and that one day weed would be legal, and then with the stroke of a pen the next day, it would be legal. It would go from illegal to legal with the stroke of a pen. I think that's how we all imagined it would happen. That's not how it's happening. That is not how it's happening. It is happening through real nuanced legislation that is leaving openings for entrepreneurs and creative people and scientists who know how to do things to the letter of the law. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening. You can essentially buy, not essentially, you can buy. Let's cut to the chase. If you want to get high, if that's the whole thing, like, let's forget about the therapeutic benefits of CBD and all those things, because those are all true as well. However, if you want to get high, you can get high in Texas. And it's some weird, I don't understand. It's law. It's federal, and the federal law is backed up by state law. Trump in 2018 signed the Agri-Farm Act of 2018. And within that act, there was this federal legalization of hemp products and all hemp-derived products. And THC is a hemp-derived product. So, I mean, I know nobody's prosecuting it. It's not, there's nothing to prosecute because it's legal, but like nobody is challenging the legality. There is no uproar. This is the slow creep of legalization. It's essentially legal in Texas. Now, you buy a bag of ditchweed off a corner, you're going to be spending the night in jail. But you walk into any gas station in this country and you get a product, you get one of these Delta 8 products. I don't know how to explain it. That's why I want to have this longer conversation with some experts on Pugs and Parker and figure out what's really going on here. Because essentially, if you're an old stoner and you want to get high, it's legal in Texas now. And it is the most confusing thing. So anyway, hold on. Let me get rid of Adam. I'm sorry. Hold on. What's my boy Jeff getting into? I guess I'm just a bigger person, Adam. You say some stuff. Okay, I don't want you guys fighting. No fighting. So anyway, I just took one off this over the counter. You gotta be over 21, that's a normal rule. I just took one puff at the start of this show and I went into a coughing fit that delayed the show for 5 minutes. So 28 minutes later, one puff, I still feel very good. I still feel, I don't want another one. Anyway, it's wild. It's wild that this is legal now. This is completely legal. We were at an event. We were at an event once, and James Parker vapes, and he was vaping, and I go, "What is that?" He goes, "I don't know, some vape weed that I bought at a gas station, totally legally." I go, "Okay." He just shrugged his shoulders. It's I guess it's illegal. It's still illegal to just, sell weed in bags out of your apartment, but, to the clientele of those people, you don't have to do anything illegal anymore. You can just go. No, and it's not just vape too. Oh, I don't vape. I don't like that. Dude, you walk into these places, they've got giant jars of buds. You want to smoke it, they'll give it to you in that form. And it is weed. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it. They give you a receipt, they staple the bag, and the police won't and can't do anything because it's legal. I was talking about the 2018 farm law. That was the thing that Trump signed that left all of these open opportunities for entrepreneurs and what we have now. Well, that was backed up a year later here in Texas by Greg Abbott, who signed the Texas Agriculture Bill in 2019. Maybe it was 2020, I'm not sure. But the Texas law backs up the federal law. So it ain't going anywhere. I mean, it's not like it was snuck through at the federal level. No, this was an initiative that Trump backed. And now we have all these loopholes. So remember, it's not going to be a light switch. It's not going to be weed is illegal, you're going to jail. And then they'll flip the switch and it'll be weed is legal. I mean, that's how it was in a lot of places, California, Colorado, Illinois, where I'm from. But that's not how it's going to be for the rest of these states that are resisting. It is going to be this slow creep towards legalization where one day it's not even going to be a question. Fascinating stuff. I really want to have that conversation on the nighttime show, but that's not what we do here. What we do here is topics. So let's get started. It is the 8th day of June, year of our Lord, 2023. June 8th, I'll have you know, is the 159th day of the year. There are 206 of these remaining until the end of the year. Hold on. What's happening in the chat room? What are you guys fighting about meat? I'm trying to figure out what is happening in the chat room. It seems to have spun off. Boy, the chat room has been a problem today, hasn't it? All right, whatever. Let's just move on. You guys play nice. You don't even are we learning that the Facebook people in the chat room, they were the ones that kept the peace? Because it seems pretty raucous for a halved chat room day where it's just our YouTube peeps. All right, let's get into this. First segment that we do. Here's how we do it. We like to give you all the headlines and the hot topics and all that stuff, but also we like to brace you for what's to come by giving you a little segment that we call Erstwhile on This Day. Now, what is Erstwhile on This Day? Previously on, we go through the events of this day throughout history to try and find rhythms and trends and things that might help us predict what we're going to face in the next couple hours. So, without further ado, let's go to Erstwhile on This Day. 452. On this day in 452, Attila the Hun, he leads an army in the invasion of Italy, devastating the northern provinces and the heads of Rome. Attila was cool, man. Attila was kind of like Attila for his time was kind of like Gonzaga. You know what Gonzaga is in basketball? Because Attila existed during the time of the Roman Empire. And, Gonzaga exists during the time of, North Carolina and Kentucky and, all those schools, the basketball powerhouses. And you got Gonzaga, which is just like off in the hinterlands. And they're like giant slayers. They attack the big teams. And all of a sudden, the end of the year, March Madness, there's Gonzaga in the Final Four again. And you're like, what the hell? That's who Attila the Hun was. Attila the Hun was a badass. The only guy that the Roman Empire could not take handle of. Attila the Hun, on this day in 452, Attila leads his army in an invasion of Italy. Right, shoving it right in the Roman Empire's face. He had the Goths with him at one point. He had the Alans with him at one point. 793, on this day, Vikings raid the abbey at Lindisfarne in Northumbria, commonly accepted as the beginning of the Norse activity in the British Isles. I love Viking stuff. And if I'm being honest, my knowledge and all of my interest in Viking stuff comes from the TV show Vikings. That's it, 100%. I started watching Vikings like 5, 6, 7 years ago, and now I'm like fascinated by Viking stuff. It also coincides with my friend Paco, who was dying of cancer. And Paco always fancied himself as sort of a Viking, sort of like a Viking, not only a Viking himself, but a bit of a Viking scholar. And one of the things while he was sick that he and I would go deep on in our conversations was episodes of Vikings. And he knew it all, man. He knew all the Norse legends. He had read them throughout his life. I mean, he was a Viking stock, so it was part of his like family identity and all that stuff. So he loved it, and it was one of the things. It was one of the things that brought me and him pretty close while he was passing away. Is that we would talk about Vikings and Ragnar and like all that stuff. So consequently, that's where my knowledge, the bulk of it, comes from the television show Vikings. And on this day in 793, the Vikings raided Northumbria. They took this is where they got Athelstan. See, here's my problem. According to the TV show, I don't know the real history. Does anyone know the real history? Did people write back then? I don't know. But the TV show engages in revisionist history. The TV show like mixes a bunch of people that would have never met, but they did it for dramatic purposes. So my knowledge of the Vikings and the Vikings invasion of the Brits and all of that kind of stuff, it's very, I don't know if it's real or not. But anyways, love it. Love that stuff. On this day, 1793, we saw this depicted in this is Ragnar's first, we're going this way. And they're like, no, don't go that way. There's nothing that way. You got to go that way. And Ragnar was like, nah, I got a feeling there's something just across the channel. And yep, there it was. They found England and they found gold. And they took all the monasteries. Monasteries had all the gold. Oh, the Vikings, they would never leave. Never leave. On this day in 1789, James Madison introduces 12 proposed amendments to the United States Constitution, 10 of which would become, that's right, the Bill of Rights. That's right. On this day, 1789. On this day in 1906, President Theodore Roosevelt signs the Antiquities Act into law that authorized presidents to restrict the use of certain public lands. Environmentalists. Teddy Roosevelt was our greatest American presidential environmentalist. He basically formed our national park system, and the Antiquities Act was a very big thing, which meant that no. Where the buffalo roam, going to remain where the buffalo roam. I don't care if you want to drop a mall there in 1975. Nope, it's going to be. He took care of our country. He's why we have such a beautiful country and such. He's why we're not Bulgaria. Honestly, the Antiquities Act set up a template that stopped us from becoming Eastern Europe. Because if you don't think that capitalism during the Industrial Revolution would have expanded into just about every area of this country, industrialization, all of that. Why? Chasing after money. Good thing for President Roosevelt, he came from a family with money, big money. He didn't need money, he didn't worry about money, so he didn't really give much about that class. So created this beautiful country of ours, never to be molested. Thank you, Teddy Roosevelt, one of our greats. The Roosevelts, man, you can't be. I mean, I think FDR is without a doubt our greatest president. Not without a doubt, because Lincoln was pretty good too, and then you always have to consider George. And Jefferson. But look, let's be honest. My favorite, we're talking about my list. My favorite is Teddy Roosevelt or Franklin. And the older I get, the higher up the top 5, Teddy. There are 2 Roosevelts in my top 5 favorite presidents of all time. And interestingly enough, says a lot about us as a people. 2 different political parties. You got a Republican Roosevelt and you got a Democrat Roosevelt. On this day in 1949, this was during the communist scares. Everybody was a communist. Yeah, a communist. Yeah, okay. Everybody's being called a communist. On this day in 1949, Helen Keller, Dorothy Parker, Danny Kaye, Frederick March, John Garfield, Paul Muni, and Edward G. Robinson are named in an FBI report as Communist Party members. Oh, no. Whatever. Helen Keller. You can't leave her off the list. You can't leave the deaf, dumb, blind pinball champion off the list. Really, you got to include Helen Keller. And you can't just go, This list is good enough. We don't now need to like rip on Helen Keller's reputation. She was born with nothing. She was born bumping into wall. She would have been dead by 5 if she didn't have this incredible spirit and spark of life. And then later in life, now you're going to tear down her reputation. She's overcome everything. Now she's a communist. Leave Helen Keller alone. Jeez. How much damage can she do? Let's see here. On this day in 1949, George Orwell's 1984 is published for the very first time. Oh boy, I was 14 and 14, 15, depends on when it came out. I guess it depends on when I got my hands on it. 1984. That was prime me trying to figure out the world. And are you kidding me? There is a book. There was a classic book that was written about this very year. At the same time, Van Halen puts out my favorite album. Oh, it was crazy. I was all about 1984 and 1984. You know, sometimes I totally understand that whole Winston O'Brien dynamic from 1980. That's a reference for people who read 1984, which, anyway, the Winston, I saw myself as the Winston character, but I could also kind of relate to O'Brien. O'Brien was a complicated guy. Whatever. You know what? Can I be honest about Orwell? Now that I'm riffing about 84, I liked Animal Farm better. I don't know. I like anthropomorphic animals talking. I like that. I like it when animals talk and stuff. Animal Farm. That's what I do. But anyway, on this day in 1949, George Orwell's 1984 was published for the very first time. On this day in 1966, it's Winston, right? It's Winston. I just totally got in my head. I was like, wait a second. Is Winston is the name of the lead character and O'Brien. Yeah, Winston. Okay, I said Winston. I'm sorry. I tripped up on my own little, I hit the vape pen before we started for the first time. So I'm going to have these news say, hey, you know who's high and might come out for the first time since moving to the new studio? My co-host, Schizophrenic Me. That's right. He has not appeared since we've been in the new studio. He doesn't like the new studio. He's being a bitch. He's like, he's still over there. He's not moving. He's refusing to move. That's the point about Schizophrenic Me, the voice inside my head that my entire life has told me I'm not good enough. Your idea is going to fail. He's that guy. He's refused to move. He's over there, but he's here now, actually. Yeah, over there here now. So maybe Schizophrenic Me is high on the vape. So he'll probably be chiming in. On this day in 1966, the National Football League and the American Football League announced a merger that would be effective in 1970. It's it's merger week around these parts. We had Live Golf and PGA, and it's also the anniversary of the NFL merging with the AFL. All right. When I walk the dog, here we do the show from the beautiful 1%er compound located in luxurious Highland Park, Texas. When I walk the dog every day down the block. Down the block is where Lamar Hunt lives. He's the owner of the Kansas City Chiefs, and his dad, Lamar Hunt Sr., is the guy that basically brokered this whole merger. So when we walk CeeLo, we'll give a thumbs up. Well, when we get in front of the Kansas City Chiefs house, do you know this? Fun fact, do you know like the owner of the Kansas City Chiefs lives across the street from the owner of the Dallas Cowboys? Isn't that weird? That tells you something about concentration of money in this world. Two teams, two completely different places, yet of all the places in the world they can live, they live right across the street from each other. Why? Because Kansas City Chiefs used to be the Dallas Texans. They had to move after the merger. When the merger occurred, one of the deals was Dallas can't have two football teams, and the Cowboys were more established with the NFL and all that. So the Hunts moved their team up to Kansas City, and the rest is history. But the Hunts themselves still live right down the block. They got gargoyles. When they won the Super Bowl, people threw all kinds of like flowers and stuff out in front of the gargoyles, like fans and stuff. There was like Chiefs wreath. I don't know, it's kind of cool. On this day in 1968, James Earl Ray, the man who assassinated Martin Luther King, is arrested at London Heathrow Airport. So I really get this. One of my favorite moments with my kid was we found ourselves in Memphis, Tennessee. We had a full day in Memphis, Tennessee to kill. So we're staying at this cool hotel in downtown Memphis, and I'm like, all right, I don't know anything about Memphis. Well, and I knew that I had been banned for life from Graceland, but still, I didn't know how much that's going to be enforced, right? I mean, it's like 30 years later. 30 years ago, I got banned from Graceland. So I say to my kid in the hotel room, I go, what do you want to do today? Besides eat barbecue, because we were eating barbecue like crazy. We're in Memphis, right? That's what you got to eat. And I go, what do you want? I go, what do you want to do today? I go, there's really only two choices. We can go to Graceland or we can go to the Martin Luther King Museum, which is how I called it, but it's actually the National Civil Rights Museum. I go, which one do you want to go to? And he just looked at me and he goes, what's Graceland? And I go, it's where Elvis lived. And he goes, hard pass on Elvis's house, which I thought was just, he was so dismissive of the idea. Like, why on earth would I want to go see Elvis's house? What is that? Like, he obviously doesn't know the whole, history of it all. So we decided we were going to go to the Civil Rights Museum. Now, the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, Tennessee is built adjacent to the Lorraine Hotel. The Lorraine Hotel is where Martin Luther King was assassinated. So here, I want to show you something, because it was on this day in 1968 that James Earl Ray was captured in London. He got out. James Earl Ray got away. So I want to show you this, because I thought this was interesting. When you stand there and you see where Dr. King was assassinated, and then you see where the shot came from. Okay, let me pull this up. I'm like, how did that guy get away? Like, it seems like the shot would have obviously came from that window. Let's go stand by the front door of that building to see who comes out. I mean, that seems like it would have been real easy to catch him. Okay. So here, this is the National Civil Rights Museum. You can see this is a hotel, right? You see like this is an old time hotel. And then built onto the wing here is this beautiful, cool, it's a very cool museum. It's got a lot of cool exhibits. But here, I don't know how well you can see it. You see where this circle is? I'm trying to see where my pointer is, this circle, that wreath. That is where Martin Luther King was standing, okay? He was standing right there on the balcony. These cars below are parked to sort of show where those cars were. Those were the actual cars that were parked there at the time. So this is it. So they've left the Hotel Lorraine completely intact, just so that you can see where it happened. Now I'm going to show you where the shot came from. Okay, this is where James Earl Ray shot from. Okay, so we're going to spin a little bit. You can see there's a little road, and then there's a boarding house right here. This window right here. This is like 50 yards away. I mean, my perspective is a bit skewed here because we're looking at it on Google Maps, but it's like, if Dr. King walked out, okay, so here it is. So now we got it in full frame. So over here, this wreath is where Dr. King walked out. And then over here, this window is where the shot came from. And it just seems like you would not, like, that's not that far. You would see the smoke coming out of the window. Nobody ran across the street to this door right here to see who was coming out of this building. I don't know. And he got away, got all the way to London. On this day, James Earl Ray was captured in 1968. What else do we have here? On this day in 1995, remember this guy, Scott O'Grady, United States military pilot, got shot down over Bosnia, and he had to eat bugs and stuff like that. And it was a crazy story. People magazine, he ate bugs. And then like 10 years later, Bear Grylls is making $1 million eating worse. On this day in, let's see here. That's it. That's going to be the last one. There you go. That's going to do it for Erstwhile on this day. Erstwhile. Now it's time for Buana Buana Buana. Today is your birthday. Can't afford music, so I have to sing it. This is where we go through a list of people who were born on this day, and we talk about their contributions, see if there's anything worth discussing. How about on this day in 1867, born into this world, probably America's most famous residential architect. I'm talking about Frank Lloyd Wright. I got a crazy story. I had a friend growing up whose cousins, they bought a house in Beverly. Beverly is a neighborhood in Chicago. It's a nice neighborhood. Frank Lloyd Wright built some houses there over the years, and all the Frank Lloyd Wright houses in Beverly are like, ooh, they're like really expensive and like super famous, and you can't do anything to them, that kind of thing. So my friend's cousins, they bought a house in Beverly, and they had to do some repairs to it. And as they were doing these repairs, someone came out from the state and they stopped all the repairs because they noticed something interesting about the design. So they got some University of Chicago architectural professor involved. And it turns out that this house that they bought for like, I don't know, probably $200,000 in like 1990, what turned out to be worth like $2 million because it was a Frank Lloyd Wright house that he didn't author. Like, meaning Frank Lloyd Wright ran this like school of all these architects, and sometimes he would just, sometimes his designs, things that Frank Lloyd Wright actually made, credit would be taken by some of his students, and that was the case with this house. And man, talk about a windfall investment, huh? You buy a family house for $200,000, and a couple of years later, they're like, oh, by the way, it's not $200,000 house. I know you paid $200,000 for it, but this house is going to sell for more than $2 million. This is a Frank Lloyd Wright house. Ooh, nice. That's luck. That's good living right there. Somebody did something really good, because that kind of stuff doesn't happen all the time. Born on this day in 1921. How about this dude? Here's a real baller of a dude. Ladies and gentlemen, happy birthday to the great Gordon McClendon. Gordon McClendon. I do this every year. He is without a doubt the most important media figure in the history of Dallas-Fort Worth, but he's also one of the most important media figures in the history of this country. Gordon McClendon started a little radio station called KLIF out of his garage in Oak Cliff, Texas, and built it into one of the largest networks, radio networks, and media empires of the 1970s and 80s. Gordon McClendon was born on this day in 1921. He's a real baller. He is one of the greats of radio, one of the Mount Rushmore types of American modern radio. Born on this day in 1925, Barbara Bush, the American wife of President George H.W. Bush, and the mom of the other one. Yeah, Babs Bush. She seemed like a nice lady. Born on this day in 1925, died in 2018. Born on this day in 1927, celebrating a birthday, the great Jerry Stiller. First of all you got to say is George's dad from Seinfeld. I mean, come on. That character was unlike any. Think about the first time you were introduced to George's dad on Seinfeld. That was a belly laugh. That was the first time Jerry Stiller got to really lay out in that character. I mean, my God, man, that was so different than any other television. Every characterization of a father that had ever come before in television was nothing like Jerry Stiller's. What was his name? Costanza? What was his first name? Forgot his first name. Anyway, George's dad. Don't give me Al Bundy. It's a completely different thing and a completely different style of comedy. God, Jerry Stiller was funny. And then when Seinfeld ended, Jerry Stiller was like, I want to keep doing this character. And so all he did was added a little bit of senility to the character. And then he went and did King of Queens for another 10 years as basically the same character. What a funny character that is. A Festivus for the rest of us. Come on. George's dad is the greatest. The Manzier. I mean, there are just so many George's dad moments from Seinfeld that are great. Love you, Jerry Stiller. Father of Ben Stiller, of course. And husband of Annie Mara, another great female comedian in her own right. Comedic actress, I should say. Speaking of female comedians, probably the biggest of all time, born on this day in 1933, Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers was born on this day in 1933, American comedian, actress, television host. Hold on. My son is texting me. Okay, sorry. My son just, obviously, it's probably good that my son doesn't know I'm streaming. It's probably good. It wouldn't be. Hey, what happened to the chat room? Did we lose? Chat room never came back, huh, guys? So nothing ever happened. That's weird. Okay. Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers was born on this day in 1933. Probably the greatest female comedian of all time. Frank. That's it. Frank Costanza. Now something strange is happening with the chat room on my end, and it's becoming distracting. Huh. I don't know. Anyway, Joan Rivers. What can you say about Joan Rivers? Whether you watch The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel or you watch Hacks on HBO Max, both of those shows are based on the experiences of Joan Rivers. So, boy, That's having an impact. 2 extremely popular shows in 2023, years after you've died. That's called having an impact. Marvelous Mrs. Maisel was originally developed to depict the early life and early career struggles of Joan Rivers as a female comedian in 1960s New York. And a lot of the people that are used as flashpoints in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. For instance, Mrs. Maisel's close relationship with Lenny Bruce. Those are completely based upon real relationships that Joan Rivers had with these individuals. So essentially, if you want to know what it was like to be 30-year-old Joan Rivers, you can watch The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and that's her story. Or if you want to know what it was like to be the 65, 70-year-old legendary, iconic towards the end of her career, Joan Rivers, you can watch the amazing Jean Smart in Hacks. Because Hacks is, I think Hacks is also, is Melissa Rivers one of the producers of Hacks? I know that they were involved early in it. And then Joan died. Joan died while they were like putting together the concept for Hacks. So actually, I don't know the story on that. I don't know the true story on that. But Joan Rivers, born on this day in 1933, 2 contemporary smash hit television shows. Both of those people, think about it. How many Emmy Awards has Rachel Brosnahan won for playing The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, for playing 30-year-old Joan Rivers? How many? A lot. She rattled off a couple of years in a row where it was Best Actress in a comedy series. She rattled them off. And just in the last couple of years, it's Jean Smart for Hacks, who was like always nominated, and I believe won last year for Best Actress in a Comedy Series. So there you go. Joan Rivers, born on this day, 1933. That's how you tell if someone's big. Don't tell me you're big in life. Tell me, give me 10 years after your death. Then we can start to evaluate how big you really were, because Joan Rivers is turning out to be one of the big ones of all time. How about this one? Born on this day in 1944, Boz Scaggs. We have a Boz Scaggs song that we sing. My son and me. It's called CeeLo. It is to the song, the Lido Shuffle. Lido, whoa. You know that song? Around these parts, we sing CeeLo, whoa. She's got one brown eye, the other is blue. We don't know why, what to do. CeeLo. That's what we sing. We walk around the house and we sing that. Boz Scaggs, born on this day in 1944, a musician in his own right, but was catapulted to fame through his partnership with his best friend since childhood, the great Steve Miller. Steve Miller. They met at St. Mark's right here in Dallas. Boz Scaggs is a Plano kid, and Steve Miller is a rich kid. I don't know where Steve Miller is from, but they went to St. Mark's, the very fancy private school, and Boz Scaggs and Steve Miller hooked up. They formed the Ardells. Was that the name of their first band? Something like that. I think they formed a high school band called the Ardells. And then shortly after high school, they just changed the name of the Ardells to the Steve Miller Band. And man, did they have hits in the 70s. Holy cow. And then, of course, Boz Scaggs did a solo album and had a massive hit with the Lido Shuffle and Lowdown. Boz Scaggs got more than just Lido Shuffle. He's got Lowdown. Lowdown. I wonder. Yeah, come on. Boz Scaggs had some stuff. I like Boz Scaggs. Happy birthday to you, Boz Scaggs. Lido Shuffle's an all-time banger. It is an all-time banger. Born on this day in 1951, Bonnie Tyler. Turn around, bright eyes. Remember her? A total eclipse of the heart. But she did another song. Everybody always talks about, Bonnie Tyler. Oh, kind of like she's a joke. I don't know if she's a joke or not. Man, I love the way she sings. I don't even think the Total Eclipse of the Heart is like her best song. She had a song like a couple of years before that you never hear on the radio anymore, but it was called It's a Heartache, where it was just, she's just like really singing, man. You want to talk about it's a heartache. I mean, it's like she sounds like me, or maybe she probably even sounds more masculine than me. I don't think that I sound masculine. Anyway, Bonnie Tyler, couple of hits. You got that crazy voice. Like it. I like it. Born on this day in 1955, Griffin Dunne. Griffin Dunn. He did a whole bunch of movies. After Hours is like my favorite Griffin Dunn movie. You ever seen Martin Scorsese's After Hours about a dude who goes, is it Rebecca De Mornay? I think it's Rebecca De Mornay is in it. Jeff Goldblum is in it. Wait. Hold on. Griffin Dunn, was he also in, wasn't he also, yeah. Wasn't he also in American Werewolf in London? I don't know. I think he was. I like Griffin Dunn. I don't know what he does. I just saw him here and I went, okay. Born on this day in 1960, Mick Hucknall. Or, if you will, Simply Red. Mick Hucknall, Simply Red, English singer, songwriter, born on this day in 1960. What did he do? What did Simply Red do? You guys know? Like what? Because like, doesn't he kind of look like Rick Astley? Like I get like a Rick Astley and Simply Red. I wasn't into it, back when it was a thing. I was like, okay, that seems kind of soft. I wasn't really into it, but they looked alike, right? Like Simply Red and Rick Astley. Like I know Rick Astley, never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down. I know that, right? We both been burned, but what was Simply Red? Simply Red was hold on. He was a ballad. He was a crooner, I think. I don't know. Okay, now it doesn't appear the chat room is working at all, and I do apologize for that, but it's not on our end. I promise you, it's not on our end. Reshuffle it again. Nope. Okay. Born on this day in 1960, Mick Hucknall, Simply Red. Nobody could help me. Nobody in the chat room responded to my question of what song. Holding back the years. Of course, Kevin Barber. Kevin Barber probably had a poster of Simply Red. Holding back the years. Born on this day in 1967, the always delightful Juliana Margulies. That's how you pronounce it. Juliana Margulies. First burst down to Juliana Margulies is weird, man. For me anyway, because Juliana Margulies is gorgeous, but she never like goes for the full gorge. She's always like when we first saw her, she was in ER. And her role required that she played this exhausted, anxious, put upon medical student, right? Or nurse or whatever. It was harried. So she was never like looking glamorous and all that kind of stuff. But you could tell she was beautiful. She had these eyes that were like, oh my God, Juliana Margulies' eyes. Somebody write a song about that. She's got some gorgeous eyes. Anyway. Then she did that turn on the, so in ER, I was like, okay, she's kind of cute. But then in ER, or not ER, in Sopranos, remember when she did Sopranos and she played Tony's girlfriend, the real estate agent, who was a heroin addict, a secret heroin addict, and hooked up with Christopher. Oh, man, that's where I really noticed Juliana Margulies. I was like, whoa, all right. When she's not playing an overburdened nurse at Cook County Hospital in Chicago, she looks good. Yeah, Tony Soprano got that. Christopher Moltisanti got that. Juliana Margulies, happy birthday. You are beautiful. Born on this day in 1977. I don't know. One of Kanye's personalities was born today. Kanye West, born on this day, 1977. American rapper, producer, director, and fashion designer. All right, that's going to do it for our birthdays. You know what comes next? These are the people who've died. These are the people who've died. Do we care? This is where we take a look at all the people who have passed away on this day, and we try to figure out, you know what? It's sad that people die. It is, of course, especially for those who love them. But sometimes, you take the 30,000-foot view of someone and you're like, I don't really care that he died. Dead on this day in 632. We're going to start out with a tough one. Actually, it's not tough at all. I'll tell you right now. I might even tell you this dude's name. Yeah, we care. Yeah, he's fine. Moving on. Dead on this day in 632. Muhammad died on this day in 632. The central figure of Islam, Muhammad. So yeah, we care. Moving on. I don't want, Charlie Hebdo and whatnot. Don't stick. I don't. Yeah, of course we care. Of course. Moving on. Dead on this day in 1845, Andrew Jackson, American general, judge, politician, and the 7th president of the United States. Crazy, right? The Indian killer. Yeah, he's like, he's not one of the good. He's one of the, Dead on this day in 1982, Satchel Paige, American baseball player, the Cy Young of the Negro Leagues. The legends of Satchel Paige striking out Babe Ruth and striking out Lou Gehrig and just making these people look foolish. They're, whether they're true or not, who knows? But the legend surrounding the great Satchel Paige, who was rumored to have pitched almost into his 60s, for crying out loud. I mean, this guy was always, rumor is that Satchel Paige is pitching in the farm leagues in South Carolina. It's like, Satchel Paige. Did he get to the pros? Did Satchel Paige ever play in the major leagues? Like even if it was like at the tail end, you know what I mean? Let me see. Leroy Robert Satchel Paige was an American professional baseball pitcher who played in the Negro League Baseball and Major League Baseball. There you go. Good. His career spanned 5 decades. How'd your career span 5 decades? 50. So you got to figure he started playing. All right. So it was back then. So he started playing at 5 years old, playing professional baseball in the Negro Leagues at 5 years old. We've got a rookie pitcher out there, 5-year-old Satch Paige. A right-handed pitcher, Paige first played for the semi-professional Mobile Tigers. I want to see his date of birth was always questioned. Like nobody ever knew when he was born. While Satchel Paige was playing baseball, many ages and birthdays were reported ranging from 1900 to 1908. Paige himself was the source of many of these dates. His actual birth date, July 7th, 1906. Who did he play for in the majors? Okay, so Cuba, he played for Cuba. Cleveland? I don't know. Anyway, Satchel Paige, he's a cool guy. There's a cool story there. I just don't know it. I'd like to know it because I'm fascinated by Satchel Paige. Satchel Paige, there you go. Dead on this day. Do we care? Yeah, he's an interesting guy, man. He's an interesting guy. And according to legend, there's never been a pitcher like him. Satchel Paige, dead in 1982. Here's one that kind of stopped me dead in my tracks today, as I was putting these together. Because, first of all, do we care? Yeah. I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to waste this amount of time on someone that we're not going to care. It was on this day in 2018 that Anthony Bourdain killed himself. That was a weird one for me. Man. And I think in some twisted way, I don't know. Maybe let me put it to you this way. I can remember it was a Friday morning. It was rainy and it was cold for June. And I was driving. I don't even know where I was driving, but it was in the morning. Yeah, hold on a second. Let me just double check something because I want to make sure of something before I misremember it and give some bad information. Oh, now, ladies and gentlemen, the first appearance ever of Schizophrenic Me, the voice in my head, in the new Comfort Nest South Studios. So good to have you here. Oh boy. So I was driving. I remember driving, and I remember where I was. I was at a red light. It's crazy how you just remember these things so vividly. I was at a red light on Ridgeland Avenue at Route 30 in front of from an animal hospital when they said on the radio, the morning show I was listening to, that Anthony Bourdain was dead of an apparent suicide. Man, that one really affected me. It affected me for a number of reasons. It affected me because I suffer with depression as well. MDD. People ask that all the time. So what is your category? MDD. Manageable MDD. Anyway, and it wasn't a really great time mentally in my life. I was pretty much fighting every day to try and, shut up Schizophrenic Me. How'd that work out? Pretty good, because I've turned you into a character on my stream, you bitch. And it just, Anthony Bourdain to me just seemed like, come on. How many of us had watched that show and gone, how does he get that life? How does one, sure, you got the British royal family. They hit the lottery. But also Anthony Bourdain hit the lottery. He was paid millions of dollars a year to travel to the most fascinating places around the world and have incredible dinners and drinks and conversation with that part of the world's most interesting people. I mean, and then that guy kills himself, right? That guy, he's dating beautiful actresses. He's got money in the bank. Everybody likes him. Everybody, I won't say this. Maybe everybody doesn't like him because he doesn't like everybody. And that's quite clear. And he made that clear. And he could be kind of a dick to people that, were deserving of being dick. But the point is, everybody kind of admired that there was a coolness about him, right? Bourdain, there was a coolness about that dude. Whether it was his, pursuit of jujitsu belts in his 50s, or, that he used to be a junkie who, got over that and now, binge drinks for the entertainment of people on television. I don't know. Everything about him was cool. He was smart. He was well-read. He was articulate. He could connect with all different kinds of people. We watched. We know what it was. He was awesome. He was cool. And then when he killed himself, it's like, wow. It's like, Jesus, man. It's like, I'm hanging by a thread here in this freaking guy. It's like, oh. But man, I will say this. Him dying, I think it may have had an effect on me, on myself, where I was like, well, there's an opening. There's a job opening in that kind of a thing. No. By the way, you can't just lose Anthony Bourdain and then take like Stanley Tucci and like make a news show and be like, yeah, it's kind of like it. No, it's not. Have you seen that show that CNN replaced Parts Unknown with? That was the Bourdain show. CNN replaced it with just like Stanley Tucci standing in Italian people's kitchens. It's like not. I love Stanley Tucci, but Stanley Tucci ain't Anthony Bourdain. There was an edge to Anthony Bourdain. If there was a fist fight could break out during an Anthony Bourdain show, that would totally be you would totally expect a fist fight to break out, and you could imagine the host Anthony Bourdain throwing some hands. He was cool. He was cool. Anthony Bourdain died on this day. Do we care? Yeah, we care. He's one of my favorites. One of my favorites. Had a really never met him, none of that stuff. I had an encounter with him. I wouldn't say met him. Had an encounter with him with my son. We were, it was at Lollapalooza. We weren't at Lollapalooza. Lollapalooza was going on. We were walking down Michigan Avenue. And if you're familiar with Chicago during Lollapalooza, that means Michigan Avenue is filled with thousands and thousands of people. A lot of women dressed in rave clothing. And, it's crazy. It's fun. Anyway, so I'm with my son, who was probably at the time about 7 or 8 years old. We're walking down Michigan Avenue, and there is sort of a sea of people. And this person comes out of this building and just gets funneled right into the flow of humanity that is walking down. And I look over, and walking with us is Anthony Bourdain. He'd just come out of this one place, and now he was walking. And, there are people all around us. It's almost like when you see a marathon, when people are running. So we're kind of stuck in this little area for a second here. And I look over at him and I go, hey, man, how are you? And he goes, how about this? And I go, yeah. And I said to my son, who was like 8 or 9 years old, I go, hey, Mason, this is Anthony Bourdain, the man we watch on TV. And he goes, hey, Mason, now that's an all-American name. And he jokingly shook his hand and all that. And then we were standing there at a stoplight at probably Michigan and Balbo. And I said to him, I go, are you going over there? And Anthony, and I pointed across the street to Lollapalooza, and he looked at me and he gave me a look like, come on, man, do you think I'm going into that mess? And it was just, and then the light changed and he made a right into the building, and we kept walking. And it was just a really nice little weird celebrity encounter that and just in that moment, he was a cool guy. He was who you wanted him to be. Now, I was a big fan of him. And the reason I pointed him out to Mason is because I made Mason watch his shows with me. He sits on my lap when he was little. So he was aware of him too. And Mason says, his mom and stepdad watched him too. So he knew who he was. But I'm really good at reading people. And in that absolute moment, that little human, nobody wanted anything from anybody else. We were just both a couple of fish swimming upstream in this mass of fish humanity. We just connected as people. And the real connection, the real nuance, the subtlety of the connection was when I said, you going over there? Like I pointed to Lollapalooza, and we bonded with a look in a way that like old friends do. You know what I mean? It was a human connection. Like the look that he gave me was like, you should know what this means. And I was like, okay, you're not going. Splits off. He was a nice man. Nice man. Anthony Bourdain, dead on this day in 2018. Okay. My kid and I still talk about that. Hey, remember when we saw Anthony Bourdain? Yeah, he was nice. Let's get into the topics now. This is the part of the show where we talk about all the things that are trending, all the things that are happening, the headlines. The chat room is now completely screwed up, isn't it? I mean, there's almost like no reason for this chat room to be happening today. I can't, it's not sharing now at all on my screen. Facebook isn't working. YouTube's, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. So you know what? I'm just going to move forward. I apologize to you guys. You know, it's not always going to be the case. You know, it's going to fix, and you know, it's going to fix itself. Nobody's going to do anything. And the next time we try to do it, it's all going to be fine, because that's the age we live in, where just, you know, things get glitchy and then they're not glitchy anymore. And we all just go, hope it doesn't get glitchy in a really important moment sometime. Yeah. All right, so let's get into what this show is all about. Monday through Friday, noon to whenever, we go through all of the hot topics and the current events, and we talk about the things that are happening. I try to get you prepped up so you're not walking around thinking, I don't know nothing about nothing. I'm going to give you a nice little bite-sized treat on each and every topic, every trend, everything that people are talking about. All right, let's do it. Let's run through the first thing. The biggest thing that people are talking about today is the Supreme Court of the United States of America. That's right, the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Those big old liberal justices, Chief Robert and Justice Kavanaugh, Brett Kavanaugh, they sided with the liberals and basically told Alabama, the gerrymandering. We know about gerrymandering, okay? So Alabama got together, you know, all their like little state elected delegates and all that. So they got together and they said, let's redraw the map. And they made the map really, you know, what some people might say is racist. That's some people. I'm just saying those are the accusations. And so these problems with the new Alabama map made its way all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And the world is shocked. The Supreme Court said, yeah, that map is racist. And, you know, there you have it. And surprisingly enough, it was a conservative-led court led by conservative Justice Roberts and Brett Kavanaugh, who both signed with the three liberal judges, creating a 5-4 victory for the people saying that the Alabama law was unconstitutional and illegal. So now they got to go back to the drawing board, and we'll see. I mean, look, this is something that, you know, maybe some people talk about. I guess there's a lot of people that scream about it, but they always seem like crazy people who are screaming about it. So I haven't really delved into it, but do you know about the gerrymander? I mean, have you seen the way these districts are drawn? It's absurd. It's crazy. Districts should be blocks, just blocks, block, block, block. But they don't. They're not blocks. They're not blocks because that's not an advantage to any one party over the other. So instead of just having districts be this square mile, if you live inside here, this is what district you're in. And the next one, if you live inside here, this is what. No, instead of that, it's like these weird squiggly. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's absurd. And everybody just goes, yeah, that's fucking nuts. But whatever, moving on. No, let's go back to that's fucking nuts. Let's just make it squares. Everything equal. Okay. There are like districts that have arms, splinters that go out like 20 miles just to get some new suburb that might, you know, help these. It's crazy. Just look at these gerrymandered lands. So thank you, Supreme Court of the United States. All these lefties, the Supreme Court's gonna be terrible. Well, you know what? Here you go, lefties. Here is a very conservative Supreme Court of the United States siding with you on an issue. So stop it. Stop your complaining. Everything works out. Okay, I know the Roe versus Wade thing is problematic, but just take your victories where you can. New York air quality is still trending today. New York air. You know what? Yesterday, remember, I was like, at the end of the show, I was like, oh yeah, by the way, the air in New York is bad because of Canadian wildfire. And I said, I don't really want to talk about this story because I'm so tired of amplifying the angst of New York people. Everything that happens in New York is like amplified from coast to coast because everybody who's on TV and on the radio with a national platform, they all do it out of New York. So if, God forbid they have a difficult time exiting their limousine to the front door of the big spacious office tower they work in, I got rained on for 3 seconds. Okay. If that happens, you better believe that Good Morning America is going to talk about the weather in New York to the people of Nebraska for a good 45 minutes. I hate it. I hate that thing. It's the New York bias. East Coast bias, whatever. Everything that's affecting them is like super important. So I ignored the story. I even said so. I said, okay, fine. We'll do this. Last story of the day. New York, there's like smoke over it and everybody's freaking out. But screw those people. They complain about everything. I ignored it because it didn't affect me. And then it affected me. God damn. I have such few joys in my life. One of my joys is a torturous joy, which is watching baseball because my team is underperforming, although they're very good lately. They seem to have pulled out of their rut. But my team went on an 11-game losing streak, and we have been fighting to get back to 500. And we're on a 5-game win streak, so that's good. So that's fine. Things are looking good. But my White Sox are playing the New York Yankees, and every night I enjoy watching my White Sox games every single night. And they canceled the game last night. My God, they canceled the game. They canceled the game. And so now I am affected. Now it's bugging me because now we got another game today. We got another Sox at Yankees game today. Is that game going to be canceled too? Am I going to have to suffer through 2 days of no baseball? Not in June. Don't do that to me. I have so few joys in life. But it was bad. You've seen the pictures. Well, of course you've seen the pictures because it's happening to people in New York, so it's everywhere. So I ain't going to show you any pictures. Look at the Brooklyn Bridge. Yeah, I know it's bad. It's actually worse than bad. This is like this is all like really, it's not toxic, but it's just pure carbon that these people are breathing in because these are trees that are burning. This is a forest fire that started in Canada. And by the way, it ain't just happening. It ain't just happening in New York, even though, we think it is. It's all over the East Coast. These people are being swamped. But no, the center of attention is New York City because, all the people that cover these news stories have to do is go downstairs onto their street. And so everybody's, I'm live in New York City. What, as opposed to when you're up in that building sitting behind the desk? You're live in New York City there too. But now you're on the street. You went downstairs. You didn't have to get in a plane and fly somewhere else and then stand there and go live. No, this one was easy for you to cover. So you're cramming it down our throats. Canadian wildfires. This is the story that is causing the New York story. By the way, the air quality in New York City yesterday was the worst on the planet. Worst on the planet. And also, the New York City Department of Health said, hey, you know how it's real convenient that you have all those N95 masks handy so that you can just utilize them for this thing? Yeah, no, those won't work. Those do not work for this. So, all the fancy masks that you thought you were going to be wearing. Now they'll probably sell you new masks, though, if this lingers, although they don't expect it to linger. They expect it to move out. Wildfires continue to ravage large tracts of forest in Canada with little sign that weather will provide much help to firefighters who are battling the blazes that sent smoke more than 1,000 miles southward and prompted air hazards, hazard alerts, and other problems in cities on both sides of the U.S. border. More than 400 forest fires. Is this like a, I don't ever remember this, right? I don't remember Canadian forest fires. I mean, certainly they happen. There's a lot of forest up there, but I don't remember, I don't remember this. This isn't like something like, oh yeah, I remember when this happened in 83. I don't know that I remember a Canadian forest fire ever causing issues like this. All right, what else do we have here? Also trending today, Ukraine counteroffensive. They've been talking about it for a while. It appears that the Ukrainian counteroffensive has begun, which is crazy to think of, because if you just go back about a year and 2 or 3 months since this war started, in the opening days, we were just like, okay, when are we going to see the Russian tanks roll through Kiev? That didn't happen. Not only did that not happen, but here we are now after a year and a half of defending their homeland. The Ukraine is now going, All right, boys, let's go on offense. And now they're attacking back. See, we didn't really think about that. You didn't think the Ukrainian resistance to this point had been a counteroffensive, or not a counteroffensive. It had been a defensive stance. They had been dug in. They had ceded the Donbas region, which is there in the eastern part of the Ukraine, because that's where the first incursion occurred, and that's where the tanks got. They got a jump start. Not to mention that they had already controlled the Crimea in the Black Sea port of Sevastopol, and that's a big Russian military place. So they had to concede the Donbas. That's fine. But what they did was they sort of created this thing around the guts of the Ukraine, and especially Kiev. And they said, you ain't getting this. And that's what they wanted. They wanted Kiev because that will signal conquering the country. And they couldn't get it for a year and a half after great losses, incredible, horrific things happening on the Russian sides. Now we know about the horrific things happening on the Ukrainian sides. War is hell. But it is just astonishing that here we are a year and a half almost into this war, and the Ukraine is going, not only are we not on our last legs, but we are getting ready to throw a punch. So that's what's happening right now. Ukraine's military has launched its long-awaited counteroffensive against Russian forces. One senior officer and one soldier near the front lines has reported to NBC News. After months of buildup to a campaign that could prove crucial in Kiev's bid to reclaim the occupied territory, this is about the Donbas. This is about retaking that whole area now. After months of buildup in a campaign that could prove crucial in Kiev's bid to reclaim occupied territory, a wave of attacks on Thursday focused on the war's southeastern front lines and appeared to represent a significant new push by the Ukrainian military. All right, there you have it. That's really, it's just been, duck and cover for the first year and a half, try and sustain this and, basically fire back, but don't have any strategy to flank. Just dig in and fight them off. Here we go. Now we're going to see the Ukrainian army actually try and put a war plan together. Cuba and China. Cuba and China are trending. You see this? This is something that we should be concerned about. All right. So China is paying Cuba $2 billion to build this massive state-of-the-art reconnaissance center right there in Cuba. And Cuba's like, yep, we'll take it. Cuba's economy's in the trash. So Cuba's like, yeah, we'll take it. So China's going to give them $2 billion. China, 100 miles off the coast of Florida. China's going to build this giant listening station. And, make me mad. I don't want that. I don't want that going on. But, it's not like we're, we have Taiwan. We have a naval base in Taiwan. It's the same thing. It's like, and one of the advantages, that I always thought that we held here in America is that if we choose to be, we could be a very effective isolationist nation. We're across an ocean, right? All we really have to deal with is Central and South America. Canada's on our side. They're just an extension of us. We could block out the rest of the world if we wanted to. So we're difficult to spy on in that regard. Cuba has always been the thing. Cuba is always, Russia tried to put missiles there during the Cold War, the Bay of Pigs, all that happened because of that. Now we've got this situation. So what is this? I don't know. We listen to them. We do all of this stuff. China, Cuba, by the way, these laws are so weird. Like these treaties or these deals or whatever. Like, I'll give you an example. Guantanamo Bay is wholly owned by the United States government, even though it's in Cuba. Like all the time that we were fighting with Castro, we had this giant piece of beach, this huge part of the country. We occupied it and we turned it into our own military base. Castro hated it, of course, but they never did anything about it. Like, there was never anything that could be done. We just, my point is, we had military actually right there on the island of Cuba. We were right there. We just took a thing and we're sitting there. So I don't know. China, Cuba will sell their shit to whoever is buying. I don't know how that deal came down. What's Guantanamo Bay? Does it go all the way back to like Teddy Roosevelt and San Juan Hill and all that? I don't know. I don't know the history of it. But I always thought it was strange that, we're supposed to have absolutely no relationship at all with Cuba. And yet here we are. We actually have a naval base in Cuba. So here's what's happening. Beijing is likely to argue in defense of their base. Beijing is likely to argue that the base in Cuba is justified because of U.S. military and intelligence activities close to China. U.S. military aircraft fly over the South China Sea, engaging in electronic surveillance. The U.S. sells arms to Taiwan, which China considers a renegade province. They've deployed a number of troops there in Taiwan to train Taiwanese military, and the United States sails Navy ships through the Taiwan Straits. So that's what China's saying. They're like, dude, you guys are like right there. And like, we've been putting up with it. You can put up with this. I don't know. We're fucking with each other. That's what we're doing. China and America right now, we're probably for the next 20 years, we're just going to screw with each other. California and Texas versus DeSantis. That's right. The states of California and the states of Texas. Well, actually, I don't know if this is coming from the state of Texas, but here's how the story is written. Officials in both California and Texas are now suing or on the verge of filing suits against Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for these migrant flights. Okay, so it's the San Antonio sheriff, the sheriff down there in Bexar County who was claiming, kidnapping and blah, 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 and all this stuff. We know about what Gavin Newsom in California announced yesterday. If you were watching yesterday, Gavin Newsom says he intends to file kidnapping charges against Ron DeSantis for the treatment of migrants. Now, are you guys aware of these like migrant flights? Like when I was telling this story the other day, I was like, yeah, so these migrants, they're down there in Florida and then they get put on a plane and he sends them up to Martha's Vineyard. That's wrong. I had that totally wrong. DeSantis is filling up plane loads of migrants in states like Texas and then flying them places. Why are you even involved in this, DeSantis? This isn't a Florida issue. Why? Because he's a piece of shit politician who isn't governing his own state, but instead trying to make some impact on people in the middle. These are nonsense things. I thought for sure that DeSantis was just putting Florida migrants, people who originated in Florida that he had to deal with. He's like, I got to deal with these people. I don't know what I'm going to do. Let's send them to Martha's Vineyard. Like, I get that. That's still kind of shitty, but I get it. What I don't get is that like he's flying. He raised $15 million. He raised $15 million on these flights. And basically he's just buying planes, sending them to other states, scooping up the other states' migrants, and then sending them to a third state. It's crazy. It is so unnecessarily provocative in a time when we don't need to be doing this kind of nonsense. And why is he doing it? He's doing it for his own glory. What a terrible person. That's just like such a garbage dude. I watched a half-hour sit-down interview with Chris Christie again last night, and I think I might be voting Republican this time. I really do. I am starting to look at Chris Christie like, yeah, man, all right. Yeah, I'm starting to. Not all the way there yet. Can we have a fat president? I mean, Trump was really fat, but really fat. Like Trump is just like a fat guy who, eats McDonald's all the time. Trump's like me, fat guy. Christie is like a big fat guy. Like, is that a thing? Is that a thing that we would elect? I mean, I would. Of course I would. But I mean, I'm talking about the public at large. They say they'll never elect a man with a beard. So I'm wondering, like, is fat a thing? Is ugly a thing? Will we ever have an ugly president? Could Abe Lincoln or John Tyler looked like a rat. I think it's John Tyler who looked like a rat. Anyway, could we elect an ugly president? Who's the ugly? Oh, now this is a Pugs and Parker conversation for maybe tonight. Let me write this down. Okay, so who's the ugliest person to ever run for president that you can remember? And I'm not saying this as like, ugly, I'm handsome. No, I'm talking about in the telegenic age, in the age where we are, because I don't believe there has been an unattractive person who has run for president in my lifetime. I'm trying to think who is back in the old days before TV and before pictures and all that, ugly dudes got to be president all the time. I just don't think that's a thing. And I wonder, Chris Christie about him being so heavy and is that going to be a problem? I like the fire. I like the smoke. I like that he's going to hold people accountable. I like that he's calling BS on things that are obviously just designed to gin people up. I like him. He's a conservative. He's more socially conservative than I'm comfortable with. But these are social concerns. We can deal with those in other ways. He seems like I don't know. I'm starting to like him. No, I'm not starting to like him. I always kind of liked him. And then I really got upset with him. And then he started to bring me back around to him. And now I think I'm starting to like Chris Christie again. I think I am. I think I can get behind his domestic policies for sure. Absolutely. After hearing him talk now for a couple of days in a row, if what he is saying is what he intends to do, he understands the role of teachers. He's a blue collar guy, man. That's what appeals to me. He is a working class blue collar guy who made his way up. Okay. He's not a Nepo baby. He doesn't have a fancy last name. He didn't make a whole bunch of money in the .com. He is just a fucking blue collar guy who went to Rutgers, he went to the state college there in New Jersey and made his way all the way up. Despite being a big fat guy, he made his way all the way up to governor. Which, and again, I'm not being a weightist. I'm simply saying that in this telegenic age, that is a rarity. So there's got to be something else he's doing. I like the working class aspect that he brings. I like the middle class attention that he brings. He's not one of these billionaires who's thinking about how much money he's going to be able to get when he's out of office. At least he doesn't strike me as that. Why would I go off on that? I have no idea. Okay. Oh, because I watched that thing last night and I took a hit of this. I'm still a little bit buzzed. I'm still a little bit buzzed from this vape, this weed vape. Jeez. Well, it's okay. We're going to keep going. All right. Let's see here. What else do we have? We got the Cuba. We got the China. What else is trending? California and Texas and DeSantis. Puerto Rican heat. Okay, so this is apparently it's really hot in Puerto Rico. 120 Puerto Rican heat. Doesn't that sound like Puerto Rican heat? Starring Jennifer Lopez and John Leguizamo. She's a cop. He's a robber. They're in love. Puerto Rican heat. 125 degrees. 125 degrees heat index. Puerto Rican heat. Wednesdays on ABC this fall. I don't know what a heat index is. Not a clue. Is that like the hot version of a wind chill factor? Because I understand a wind chill factor. Hey! Sorry, the dog started to use her stupid paws and scratch the floor, and these floors in this walk-in closet that I've converted into a studio. These floors. Well, they're solid. They're solid wood, and they're probably like redwood. They're probably like some kind of endangered redwood. So, dog, please don't scratch on the floors. Yeah. So it's really hot in Puerto Rico. I don't know what else to say about that. You want to hear something? You want to hear something crazy? I don't know where Puerto Rico is. I don't know where Puerto Rico is. I know where I think it is. Do you know where I think Puerto Rico is? Like in my head, like when I make a map of the world, you know where I put Puerto Rico? I put Puerto Rico right in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, like off the coast of Corpus Christi. That's like right where I put. That's where I want Puerto Rico to be. I want it to be right there. It's not. It's not there. I'm not even sure where it is. Like, is Puerto Rico more Bahamas or is Puerto Rico more like Cancun? I don't know where it is. I don't know where it is. Now I want to look it up, but we won't do that here. That's something I can do later. I know Puerto Rico's close. Like, is Puerto Rico by Cuba? I have no idea. I have no idea where it is. I know it's not. I know where Bermuda is because those are like the cold islands. Those are like the islands that seem to be up in the Atlantic, right? Bermuda's like off North Carolina, South Carolina, up in that area. So I get that. I know where that is. But where's Puerto Rico? I know where Cuba is. I know where the Bahamas are because I've been there. I know where Turks and Caicos is. No idea where Puerto Rico is. Why don't people go to Puerto Rico? Why isn't that a vacation destination? It seems like it could be beautiful. It's about to be a state. Why isn't Puerto Rico more like, let's go to Puerto Rico? It's not dangerous. Is it dangerous? I don't know. It's 125, that's for sure. All right, a couple of deaths we need to report on today. Dropping dead today at the age of 93. We've got evangelist Pat Robertson, 700 Club. Man, we used to watch the 700 Club in college. because it was on at like 2 a.m, right? Like you'd come in after a party, bunch of guys. You got your greasy bags filled with, like, French fries and burgers or whatever it is that you just picked up after the bars closed, and now you're back at your buddy's apartment, and it's nothing but infomercials and the 700 Club. You put the 700 Club on, you just start riffing on these people. You just start like, okay, so what do you think this guy's secret is? And then, man, Pat Robertson, he was a doozy. Pat Robertson, another one of these nepo kids. I don't know if people realize this. Well, maybe you do. People who know Pat Robertson maybe do. Although I don't think that he talked much about it. Pat Robertson's father was Senator. What was his name? I can't think of it. Willis Robinson. Senator A. Willis Robinson was Pat. So Pat Robinson didn't come. He's not like Jimmy Swaggart, who came from like a cardboard box in Butcher Holler. Pat Robertson was the son of a United States senator, and a very powerful United States senator back in the time. He was an incredible racist U.S. senator. So that's the house that Pat Robertson was raised in. But, you have to imagine a guy in the South of that era, especially with a little bit of money and influence, was probably going to be exposed to some racist ideology. But that's who raised him, A. Willis Robertson. He was one of the famous Dixiecrats. He was a Democrat at the time, back when Democrats, decided to get rid of all of those people and form a whole new kind of party with Kennedy and all them in the 60s. But the Dixiecrats, he was one of their leaders, and he was an avowed racist. He was not a good man. A. Willis Robertson was Pat Robertson's father. Pat Robertson was, educated at all the best schools. He went to a boarding school in Maryland when his father was a big, powerful senator there. And then he went on to Yale, and he graduated with a law degree from Yale. And immediately Pat Robertson went to work on Wall Street, where he made all kinds of money in Wall Street. And then what was an opportunity to buy a religious television, or not even a religious, one single station presented itself. And he was a smart man. Pat Robertson was a smart man. Remember, Yale grad, worked on Wall Street, understood, how a business could be built. And he created a massive evangelical media empire. He really did. You got to give him credit for that. Also did a lot of really terrible things. It said a whole bunch of terrible things about people over the time, over his time. Famously blamed Katrina on homosexuality. Remember Katrina, homosexuals. That's why that happened. 9/11 happened also because of abortion and homosexuality. So he had a whole bunch of these things. Anyway, 93 years old. Pat Robertson, founder of, I don't know, what's he founder of? Trinity Christian, whatever, some broadcast company. You know who he is. He died today, 93 years old. Also dead today, interestingly enough, at 93 years old. Comic Pat Cooper. Pat Cooper died at 93 years old. Pat Cooper is one of these vaudeville guys. He's not vaudeville. Sorry. Catskill. He's like one of these Catskill comics. Catskill comics were a style of comedian that existed in the 1950s and 1960s, whose income was entirely based on moving from Catskills Jewish Resort to Catskills Jewish Resort. The Catskills Mountains had dozens of these really nice resort hotels in the woods that were catering to New York Jewish people. So it became this sort of in the mountains Jewish summertime Disneyland, where you could go to all of these. There is a really great, I don't know if it's on Amazon Prime or whatever it is, but there is a documentary about this place called Casters in the Catskills, and it's called One Summer at Casters. And it just tells the story of what these Catskills resorts, made famous by Dirty Dancing, right? Dirty Dancing, that was a Catskills resort. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, I always talk about it. They spend a lot of time at these Catskills resorts. They look like really cool places. But Pat Cooper was one of the comedians who sort of developed a style that was known as Catskills comedy style. and they would play to mostly Jewish upper middle class audiences, and it was sometimes it was a little bit racy, but it was also steeped in ethnicity, very steeped in poking fun at the Jewish existence, the Jewish experience existence. That's what the Nazis tried to do. No, the Jewish experience in America. So I want to give you an example. Pat Cooper, for me, became most famous for his many just burned down the house appearances on the Howard Stern show, and then later on Opie and Anthony. Pat Cooper, as an old man, as an old comic, did not give a he gave no F's, and he always brought the heat. So seemed like a pretty funny old man. Howard loved him. Anthony loved him. So I want to give you an example of what his comedy was like. Pat Cooper died today at the age of 93. This is Pat Cooper taken from the Comedy Central roast of Drew Carey from probably about, 10 years ago or so. Let's give this a watch. This is the style of Pat Cooper. Here you go.
Cooper was known as the pissed off guy on the Ed Sullivan Show. Today, he's known as the pissed off guy on the Howard Stern Show. For a guy who's been working steadily for 30 years, he's awful pissed off. Ladies and gentlemen, Pat Cooper.
This spot can only hurt me, ladies and gentlemen. You can't go anywhere from here. You'll walk out and say, well, this one did good, that one did good. Cooper closed. What's to do for next year? He'll close again. Who gives a shit? I'm here because, and I swear to you, ladies and gentlemen, I don't lie. I don't know what the this man does. I don't know where he came from. I'm 40 years in this business. This guy drinks beer, pisses gas, and he gets a series. I drink beer, piss, gas, and I got a colon problem. I lost a job because of this $10,000 job, so this man flies in. I'm losing $2,500 so this man can be roasted, and tomorrow nobody will give a and they say, we're there, who gives a Nobody. I've been in roasts with big giants, Bruce Willis, Jerry Lewis, ladies and gentlemen. We never had to wear a tuxedo.
Let me just point something out here just briefly. And this is kind of what I was wanting you guys to see when I was talking about the Catskills style. Not a lot of jokes. Do you notice the absence of actual wit? There's like an absence of setup and then telling a joke. It's all attitude. It's in your face. It's working in the moment. It's looking at the crowd and doing crowd work and just riffing on the people that you see. Very little like traditional comedy. That's all attitude, and that's what these Catskills guys were. Let's a little bit more of the late Pat Cooper. Attitude over actual humor.
And when I look at his face, I want a great cheese. Tuxedo for what? For the Comedy Channel. Who the cares? Cable is not where it's at. Radio. Anybody can do television with pictures, but the two radio where you got an imagination, that's balls. I will never do another roast. This is my last roast. I want him to know it was his fault. I met Drew tonight for the first time. I swear he shook my hand. That bum didn't know who I was. He didn't know. He said, I have a mumbling. Mumbling. Got a hand like a bag of clams. And I met his co-star, Kenny Minnie Finny Finny, who the he is. And I don't know. I ask you, please, all your producers and your directors, I ask you like men and women, why? And tell me why. I'm a genius. I'm still working the Raleigh. What I'm saying tonight is brilliant. Because when I walk off the floor, you're going to say, you know something? The man said something. He told him he's out of order with that series. And if he was a man and a genius, he'd quit. And turn around and say, Cooper, it's your show. But you know something? I tell you, nobody on the panel, nobody would say what I'm going to say now. They're all jealous of you. That's okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I say this with tremendous respect. You don't envy anybody, you admire. And I tell this guy right to his face, I admire him. He's a big talent. Thank you for coming to New York. We love you.
All right, there you go. The late Pat Cooper, dead at 93 years old. It's that attitude. Hey, why do you look at that tough guy? You know, I think it was best done and probably most popularized by Don Rickles. You know, it's that Don Rickles style. They're all sort of derivative of what Don Rickles made. Don Rickles might have been just the best at it, though, because I would say this about Don Rickles. He was funny. Like Don Rickles' quick little cut downs of people were funny. Pat Cooper, I always thought, was an interesting man and funny because of the absurdity of his rage. He was always just absurdly angry about, very similar to what we described earlier on this, the birthday of Jerry Stiller. Why was Frank Costanza on Seinfeld so funny? It's the absurdity of his rage. And why are you so angry about this? This is silly. And then, you know, that's it. So Pat Cooper has also passed away today at the age of 93 years old. Pat Cooper, legendary comedian. Pat Robertson, legendary Christian, I guess. How about this one right here? This we mentioned at the very end of the show yesterday because it was just coming across. Sort of glanced over it, didn't go into it because I wasn't familiar with actually what was happening. But we are now, and let's spend a moment to talk about Messi. Spend a moment to talk about Lionel Messi and what happened yesterday and why I think that, you know, for years and years, I had been questioning my friends. I've got two very close, dear friends, two of my closest friends in the entire world, who are soccer fanatics, right? And I'm just not a soccer guy. I'm just not. It's my buddy Aaron, one of my brothers, one of my closest people in the world to me that I care more about than anybody else. Soccer freak, you know, like travels to England to go to premier games, and his daughters are on select teams, and he was a college scholarship soccer athlete. All this, you know, soccer. Never got into it. James Parker, who I do a show with every night, another one of my closest and best friends, loves soccer. I've been saying to these people for years, I've been saying, dude, what is going on here? Every suburb in America now has 15 soccer fields and a really awesome water slide park. Why aren't we better at soccer? And, you know, there's all these reasons. It's still baseball, it's still football, and all that stuff. I think one of the main reasons why is because for younger generations, soccer has never been made cool. Soccer has always been something sort of on the fringe that every now and again pops up and you go, oh, that's interesting about soccer. And then when that's done, you just go back to ignoring it and paying attention to the NBA or the NFL. Nothing has ever really stuck. Nothing has ever really built sort of a foundation for them to build off. And I think that changed yesterday. I really do. And that was when David Beckham's Miami, David Beckham's Miami team in the MLS, Major League Soccer, the American soccer, shocked the world by getting Lionel Messi, the one of the greatest soccer player. You know, he's one of the biggest stars in the game. 35 years old. He chose. See, in years past, and we talked about this, you know, whether it's like a Lexi Lawless or whoever, you know, these guys who were great American soccer players who, you know, no matter how great they were to us here in America, they never broke through in the Premier League. They never broke through on a global level. You know, they never became superstars. So they ended up coming back home and being the highest paid guy on the LA Galaxy or the Chicago Fire or whatever, right? The Dallas Burn, whatever. Oh, FC Dallas, excuse me. And then, we got David Beckham. David Beckham, he wasn't the same David Beckham. He came to the LA Galaxy and he signed some crazy deal, and it was a big deal. Look, it's LA, but it was LA. People, LA soccer is so secondary in LA. No offense, but there are celebrities everywhere in LA. Soccer players are nothing special in LA. So even with David Beckham, when he came there, it was like, this is different. $400 million. Lionel Messi turned down $400 million to instead come play in what is globally perceived as a lesser league in Miami for a team that David Beckham has a stake in. And the reason I keep mentioning Beckham is because Beckham is considered, Messi's wife and Beckham are like considered the two people that got him to make this decision. Now, this is what I say about people. I always talk about rich guys. How much is enough? How much money do you really need? How much do you know? I always like to say that I got my bag. I know what my bag is. I know what my bag of money is. If I get my bag of money, that's it. I know what that number is. That number is going to be fine. I'm going to stop after that, and I'm just going to live comfortably with that bag. I don't need more. I don't need to kill myself and put myself in an early grave chasing a always moving goalpost of how much money can I make? Get your bag. Seems to me like Lionel Messi's got his bag. Lionel Messi's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Lionel Messi is already worth, I think we did it on, I looked it up, $600 million. He's got his $600 million. Now, that $400 million that he could have gotten for signing with, I don't know if it was a Saudi Arabian team or if it was maybe, whatever. The $400 million that was offered to him would have brought him into the billionaire. Look at him, he's a billionaire. But guess what? Lionel was like, no. I got my bag. I got 600 million. What can I do with $1 billion that I can't do with 600 million? I mean, let's be honest. In my lifetime, I'm probably going to go through about 100 million of it. I'm going to die leaving the rest of it. Shouldn't it be a quality of life issue? Why do I want to chase, this elusive number? Somebody else is just going to top it, and then I'm going to have to chase him again. This is stupid. I want to be happy. I want to live a nice life. And Messi's wife wanted to live in Miami. That's what it is, man. Happy wife. Happy life. So this was an earth-shattering sports decision that was made yesterday. I mean, I know here in America, we don't really think much about it because soccer isn't that big on our radar. But you better, in the soccer capitals of the world, they're freaking out. They cannot believe this. Why would one of the world's great players, when he's still capable of leading championship squads to titles in the most competitive leagues of the sport he chooses to live in, why would he choose to come to Miami? Well, the wife. And because David Beckham made him a deal. Well, actually, that was speculation, so I don't want to go into that. But let's talk about what this does for Major League Soccer. Let's talk about this, okay? Because this is why I think it's a game changer here in America. As I've been saying to my soccer friends all the time, why hasn't it caught on? Why hasn't it caught on? Lionel Messi is going to instantly turn the Miami MLS team into a team that's got to think about making a bigger stadium. They're going to sell out every single game. Every single game that they play that Messi is on the pitch. Let's call it what it is, the pitch. Let's get the terminology down as we're trying to normalize in mainstream soccer. Every game that he's on the pitch is going to be a festival. It is going to be crazy. There are going to be global interest for the first time ever because this guy isn't just some broken down former cast off from a super league or something. This is a legitimate icon of the sport. And he's still playing. And he's 35. He's not 42. He's not cashing the last couple of paychecks. He was just offered $400 million. So that's what the soccer world still thinks of him as a presence. And he's taking significantly less to come here and play in Miami. So now what is this going to do for the Miami team? Well, it's going to make them, we're going to see Miami jerseys. We're going to start seeing Messi jerseys and Messi stuff everywhere. They'll probably be one of the biggest selling jerseys. We'll see them with the Mahomeses and, the LeBrons and all that stuff. But what happens when they go on the road? Miami is coming to Frisco this season. This season, Miami, or not this season, the next season, they play 1-1 every year. So what happens when Messi comes to Frisco? Oh, do you think there'll be some interest for that? Do you think FC Dallas versus Miami and Messi is going to be the hottest effing ticket in this town in years? People who don't even give a crap about soccer are going to be whipped up into a frenzy about the very presence of this global sport icon coming to Frisco. It's going to be huge. And that's not just Dallas. That's going to be in every soccer city that Miami plays. Every town that they play in, they are going to, it's going to be the biggest sellout in that franchise's history. Every single town. That's great for the league, man. That is great. This is the kind of thing that you can go, well, who might somebody follow? Who knows? It's a really good thing. I wish no ill will against my soccer friends. I make fun of them, my communist sport, all that kind of stuff. But this is really, I believe, an historic thing occurred yesterday that could be the beginning of a big sea change in the way Major League Soccer is perceived in this country. Messi is he's gonna make waves. He's gonna make an impact. I already know. I mean, I was talking to my kid about it. And I said, he said, "Did you hear about Messi? He's coming." My kid doesn't even like soccer, but somehow it's on his radar. This is a big sports story in his world. It's like, man, I'd go see him. He doesn't even like soccer. He likes soccer to the extent that me and him watch Ted Lasso, but that's it, But look at this, a 14-year-old kid getting all ginned up because, he knows who Messi is because he plays the video games, and Messi is a global superstar. Just because me or you, Mr. 50-year-old white guy living in the suburbs who's never watched, one game of soccer, just because we don't know who this guy is, you got to understand this guy is big. He is, it's like these global superstars of sport. LeBron James is certainly one. Messi, you got Lewis Hamilton in F1. You got these golf. I'm telling you, these people are big. And just because they're not big in Nebraska doesn't mean that they're not big in all the other corners of the world. It's a big deal. Messi turned down $1 billion from the Saudis to go to Miami because his wife didn't want to live in the Gulf and preferred Miami. Soccer superstar Lionel Messi is officially turning down a ton of money from the Saudis because of his family. Last week, it was reported that Saudi Arabia's Al Hilal had offered Messi $1.2 billion for 2 years. According to the French newspaper L'Equipe, Messi and his wife, Antonella Rocuzzo, tell me she's not hot. I don't even know what she looks like, but she's married to Messi. And her name, she's an Italian. Her name is Antonella Rocuzzo. That's a cool last name. Tony Rocuzzo. Antonella Rocuzzo rejected the offer. She rejected the offer. She didn't want to live there. She rejected the offer because they couldn't imagine raising their children in the Gulf. It says here, barring a huge turnaround, Leo Messi will not sign for Saudi Arabia. He will reject their $1 billion plus offer. He and his wife can't imagine moving there with their children. Inter Miami are now the front runners for his signature. Now, this was from a couple of days ago, so we know that has changed. But wow. Okay. Barring a huge turnaround, blah, blah, blah. Leo Messi's wife, Antonella Rocuzzo. Okay, I'm seeing a picture of her. Yeah. Whatever you want, honey. Whatever you want. I already got my big bag of $600 million. Sure, they'll give me another, $400 million a year. But you're going to be a bitch about it, aren't you? All right, let's go to Miami. Happy wife, happy life. Even at the highest level, they understand this. Well, that'll be fun. I wonder if I'll be able to go to that game. I'll try and go to that game. I'll try and use, everybody's going to want to go to that game, man. Everybody. People will buy season tickets to FC Dallas only to be assured that they will have seats for the Messi game. That's how big an impact he will have. I promise you that. and don't, you and me as like normal middle class people, we're like, season tickets just for that? Oh, come on. You should see some of these rich people I know around. They're going to totally buy. They'll never sit in their seats except for the one game when Messi comes to town. And, that'll be worth it to them because whatever, they're stupid rich. A lot of stupid rich people. That there is a bill now that's making its way through Congress, which shocks me to learn needed to be a thing. The PGA has tax exempt status. Why does the PGA have tax exempt status? Now, I know that most of the leagues used to enjoy tax exempt status. The NFL gave up their tax exempt status, I don't know, like 10 years ago or something. It was a big deal, but, they started to make so much freaking money. It wasn't that big of a deal. The PGA is still tax exempt. The PGA, even though they make billions of dollars a year, has tax exempt nonprofit status. And no one's ever looked at it until they recently did the thing where now they're merging with Saudi Arabia, and the parent company that's going to be essentially running the day-to-day of the PGA is a Saudi Arabian company. So yeah, let's relook at that whole tax exempt thing. I think now's the time where we talk about taxing this new. We better, I swear to God, if a whole bunch of politicians decide that, no, let's keep it tax exempt because I like the access I get at PGA events because I love golf. Stop it. This better not be a thing. Did you know? Why on earth would a sports league that makes billions of dollars? What? Why? I don't know. I don't get it. Speaking of, there's a Saudi investment fund. That is the big pot of money that is rolling around. Toll-free call. Not going to take that. That was a toll-free call. Yeah, that's my ringer. My ringer goes, la, 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 la. I just changed it. The Saudi investment fund. That's the big pile of money that Mohammed bin Salman, the prince there and king, whatever the hell he is, I don't know. Chief douche in charge over there in Saudi Arabia. He's got this big sovereign wealth fund. It's used primarily to invest in outside interests in order to turn a profit for theoretically the people of Saudi Arabia, although methinks it's more about, them having multiple Ferraris and private jets. But, hey, whatever. So the Saudi investment fund is $700 and people, or $700 billion. And people were talking about how large that is and how much power that comes with. So the Saudi investment fund is a wealth fund created by a government. This is not rare. This happens a lot. $700 billion Saudi investment fund, $700 billion. It's not even the biggest. That's what the story is that I was reading. It's actually the second biggest national investment fund. The Saudi investment fund, which runs Live Golf and just purchased the PGA and owns huge parts of Uber and produces just about every film you like in Hollywood. That's all the Saudi investment fund. That money has been seeping into our everyday life for years and years. So let's not act like we're all pearl clutching now because of this PGA thing. If you want to pearl clutch over the fact that the PGA betrayed the parents and the families of those 9/11 victims. Wives, husbands, children. That's what you pearl clutch over. Not that it's Saudi money, okay? Pearl clutch over the lie. So $700 billion isn't even the largest national investment fund. You know what is the largest national investment fund? Norway. Norway has $1.4 trillion in their national investment fund. That is double the Saudi fund at number 2. Are they not investing it? Are they like, how is it that they still have all the, isn't that interesting? I have no idea why that is, but just another one of those things that's like awesome about Norway or whatever. I'm tired of people telling me how awesome it is there. I'm tired of every woman I look at from Norway being like, 5'10", blonde with blue eyes and gorgeous. I'm tired of like every guy being gigantic and muscular with a beard who's also like super nice, those people take their health care and their free education and their clean streets and their no violence and their, You know why they can do it? You want to know why they can do it? You want to know why? We could have all that. We could have what the Norways have. We could have what the Finns have. We could have what the Swedes have. We could have all that. But you know what we have instead? A defense budget. The reason everything's so great over there is because they put their money back into their shit. They put their money back into their people that we're not spending. Look, look, I'm not criticizing it either. I think after World War II, the United States of America, we decided to step up and say, okay, we're calling the shots here. We're going to be the world's bouncers. And in order to do that, we have to have our defense. Should we rethink that? I don't know. Moving forward, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. But criticizing it. I'm just saying that's why everything over there is like so clean and so nice, because they don't have a massive defense budget. They're making money and they put it back in and people are happy. Hey, you guys know me for 20 years now. You remember when we went to Iceland? That's one of those Nordic kind of systems over there. Iceland. I was in Iceland for a week. And when I came back, I couldn't stop talking about Iceland. I just loved it. I just loved the whole vibe of that whole Norwegian, Swedish, what do they call it? Nordic kind of, I don't know. It's great. It's great. Clean. Food is awful. Terrible food. Terrible, terrible food. But other than that, let's see. What else do we have to talk about here? Oh, how about this? This is a crazy story. So nuclear war of all kinds of nuclear saber rattling going around in the world. And you know what? You can't scare me because I'm a Gen X kid. I grew up during the Cold War. I lived each and every day in my first 18 years of life or so in the fear of being vaporized at any moment. So don't scare me with your where are the missiles targeted, because that's what this story is about. A nuclear attack would most likely target one of these 6 U.S. cities. All right, so these are the 6 U.S. cities that are in the most danger or would be the most obvious targets for a nuclear attack, okay? It says a nuclear attack on U.S. soil would most likely target one of 6 cities. All right, let's see. This is like the opposite of the NBA draft. This is like you don't want to be one of the top 6, right? It's like, all right, what cities are we looking at here? The first city is kind of an obvious one. New York City, come on down. New York City is one of the 6 that defense and securities. But this article is about how none of these cities are prepared for it. That maybe during the Cold War they were, but they're not anymore because they've let their guard down. And these are the 6 cities that if we were going to get to a point of no return where there were going to be some sort of targeting of missiles, these are the 6 American cities that are most at risk. New York, we knew that. Chicago, figured, centrally located. Houston, oil production, oil refining, all that stuff. Los Angeles, just break that bitch off and send it right up into the ocean. San Francisco, same. Washington, D.C., obvious reasons. All right, so there you have it. New York, Chicago, and Houston. And then L.A., San Francisco, and Washington, D.C. Those are the cities that are targeted if there is okay, so let's run through these. So New York, for obvious reasons, financial capital. Chicago, obvious reasons, centrally located, transportation hub. If you could blow up all of the trains and all that shit, Chicago's the central hub for all of that spans out. So you'd want to do that. Houston, you got the oil down there in Houston. Los Angeles, all of our favorite celebrities. I mean, I don't know why you would target Los Angeles. What's Los Angeles had to do with anything? What? You want to take out Johnny Depp's house? I mean, is that it? Is that, let's attack the morale of the country by blowing up Tom Hanks? I don't know. Okay, so I don't get Los Angeles, other than it's a large urban population. Heavily condensed. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's just a death toll thing. Maybe they just want to just wipe out as many people. San Francisco. Again, I don't understand San Francisco, especially if you're getting Los Angeles. Why do you need 2 on the coast there? Washington, D.C., I think we can all understand why that might be a target. All right. A public health expert says all of these cities would struggle to provide emergency services to the wounded. You kidding me? The cities also no longer have designated fallout shelters to protect people from radiation. So where I grew up, we used to, I'll tell you one thing that has changed. Okay. So let me see. Do we have this? Nah, I didn't grab it. That's all right. So I grew up in Orland Park, and Orland Park was the outer ring of if you were looking at, the Chicagoland area globally. So Orland Park would be like the outer ring. We'd have a defense wall, right? We would have a wall there, and the barbarians wouldn't be able to get into the Chicagoland area. They would have to attack the gates at Orland Park first. So one of the things that we had when we were growing up, although I don't know when they were taken out. I want to say somewhere around the late 80s, early 90s is when all of this stuff went away. But we had Nike missiles, which were defensive, designed to defend the city of Chicago if it were to be attacked during the Cold War. So we had all of these, this big area in Orland Park that is now developed as Homer Township, which is a neighborhood. But this big area, there were all of these silos out there. One of the funny underground silos that you never knew about if you lived there. It was just, you'd be driving in a field, and then all of a sudden there'd be a fence with a little cement building, a little tiny building, a little one-room studio building, and you'd walk in, and then you'd go underground, and there's all of the, we've seen what the silos are. One of the crazy things is that when they developed all this, when they discontinued the Nike programs and all that kind of stuff, they built mansions over one particular stretch, and they named it Silo Ridge. And they built this in 1990. They built this old grain silo. They built it to make it look like it was 200 years old, because that's what they wanted people to think the neighborhood was named after, like this old grain silo. So you'd enter into this beautiful neighborhood of all these mansions, and you'd drive through this giant old grain silo, and you'd probably go, look at that. I bet that's from the 1860s. No, it's from the 1990s. It was just built to draw people's attention away from the fact that their house sits on the former site of giant Nike missile silos. So that's Silo Ridge. That's the story of Silo Ridge. Check it out if you would. Wolf Road and 151st Street, somewhere over there in beautiful Homer Township. So that's the targeted story or targeted cities. What else do we have here? You know what? Is this what we're going to end on? No, we're not going to end on this. Hold on. So, look, guys, I have very complicated feelings on this next story. Are you guys aware of what's going on with Shannon Doherty, Brenda Walsh, 90210? I guess if you're also like the chick show, she was on that Cursed or Hexed Witches. I don't know. There was like 3 hot witches, and they were young teenage witches. I don't know. I never Cursed, Hexed. What's that show called? Shannon Doherty and the crazy one. It was Shannon Doherty, and then the crazy redhead, and then some other one that kind of looked like, is she hot? I don't know. Whatever, that show, I never watched it. Shannon Doherty's sick. Did you guys know this? Shannon Doherty's sick. She had breast cancer. I think I knew that. I think I remember that she had breast cancer, and that, she was fighting breast cancer and all that kind of stuff. Shannon Doherty has now announced that her breast cancer, her stage 4 breast cancer, has moved to her brain. So, I don't know, good Lord. Shannon Doherty. I have a very complicated relationship with my feelings towards Shannon Doherty, because I have to tell you, upon first glance, when I was first introduced to her as the lovely Brenda Walsh on 90210, I think I was smitten. I think I fell for her. I really liked her. But then over the course of that series, I began to hate Brenda Walsh so much. I couldn't believe that I was ever attracted to her. I just hated the character. And then compound that with, she had this reputation back then of being very difficult, of being kind of a bitch, So here was my problem with Brenda Walsh on 90210. She played like the perfect girl, but she made really selfish and terribly mean decisions all the time that affected others, that she acted all. But sometimes I've just got to be true to myself. Yeah, well, you just crushed that dude by being true to yourself, Brent. I just thought she was a bitch. I just thought she was a bitch on the show. I thought the character was poorly drawn. I went from being attracted to her on pure physical things to thinking, I hate this character. But now she's sick. I feel bad about that. Here's a picture of her. I think it's a recent picture. If you're wondering what old Shannon Doherty looks like, she's young too. She's only 52 years old. So that's a terrible thing to be dealing with. We all deal with these awful things. My God, knock wood. Knock wood. I'm just dealing with being a loser. That's better than having some crazy health thing. All right, so here she is, the lovely Shannon Doherty, looking. Oh, great, thanks. That's how you make it bigger. Make it bigger by making it smaller. Pretty lady, always a beautiful woman. All right, so here I'll give you the story. So, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what this means. Stage 4 and move to the brain. That doesn't sound good. So Shannon Doherty has revealed her breast cancer has spread to her brain. The 52-year-old Charmed alum revealed it back in 2020 that she had been diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. On Tuesday, which would be yesterday, she announced that a CT scan that she had on January 5th had shown that she had brain metastasis, meaning the cancer cells had spread to her brain. January 12th, the first round of radiation took place, the actor explained on Instagram alongside a video of her during radiation therapy. My fear is obvious. I'm extremely claustrophobic, and there was a lot going on in my life. Yeah, I'd say all that stuff that's going on in your life kind of drops, right? When you find out that it's spread to your brain. God love her. Anyway, look, details, pull it apart, whatever. You want to learn more about Shannon Doherty, there it is. That's all you need to know. At least as far as this show is concerned. That's terrible. That is terrible. Yikes. Here, finally mention this. Long time coming. I honestly, my son asked me about this the other day, and I told him, he said he was talking, I don't know what he was talking about. But I said, yeah, Dalvin Cook's not in Minnesota anymore. He said, where'd he go? And I go, I don't know. I think Miami. This is like a week ago I said that, because that's how long these conversations about Dalvin Cook to Miami have been taking place. Now, why do I give a shit about a running back for the Minnesota Vikings? Because the Vikings play in my division. And Dalvin Cook is a really, honestly, I'll be honest, I don't watch a whole lot of Vikings games. I watch the Vikings games twice a year. I see 2 Vikings games twice a year. The games where they play my Chicago Bears. And in all of those games over the last couple of years, Dalvin Cook has looked like Gale Sayers. He has looked like the best running back in football, at least against my team. So when, it looked like he was going to be a massive drag against their salary cap and they were going to have to make one of them June 1st decisions on him, for the last couple of weeks, I've been licking my chops that Dalvin Cook is going to be out of the division. And I think when I told my kid last week that he was out, I think I had already maybe wished that into existence. But no, today comes a little bit of movement on that. An announcement that the Vikings plan to release running back Dalvin Cook after failed attempts to trade him. The Minnesota Vikings have informed running back Dalvin Cook that they plan to release him. The Vikings are expected to try to trade him one more time Thursday, and if they are unable to, they plan to process his release on Friday. I immediately think Miami is where he's been rumored to be going for a while. Miami, there's been chatter out of Miami, but that doesn't mean anything. Chatter. I could see him being a Cowboy. I could totally see Jerry Jones picking up Dalvin Cook. And let me tell you, like I said, I've only seen him probably 4 games his entire career, because I won't tune into a random Minnesota Vikings, Carolina Panthers game. You know what I mean? That's not something. So I've seen the Minnesota Vikings and Dalvin Cook when they played my Bears for 2 times every year for the last couple of years. And he is good. And I could only imagine him being used as I use him exactly the same way that Minnesota used him. Minnesota had that incredible just litany of weapons at their disposal, of which he was a big one. Yeah, I don't know. I could definitely see him being a Cowboy. Are you that comfortable? Is it Pollard? Yeah, because Zeke's gone. So who's? I don't know. I don't think the Cowboys have any running backs. Even with Zeke, Dalvin Cook's a better running back than Zeke last year. Dalvin Cook's been a better running back than Zeke the last few years. So that's not even close. He would be the best running back in the running backs room on the Cowboys, Dalvin Cook. And he's only being cut by the Minnesota. He's 28 years old, but he's only being cut by the Minnesota Vikings because he's got like a $14.5 million, guarantee. He's going to take, it's going to be a huge hit to their salary cap if they keep him. And they're starting to look at him and they're going, okay, he's 28. We're talking about limited reserve. We don't want to take that hit. We want to build for the future. Now, if they release him after the June 1st deadline, which was last week, they only have to pay, I think, like $1.5 million or something. What the hell is that? All right. You don't have to tell me twice not to start doing sports talk. I know. I get into I would be good at sports talk though, because I would actually be able to talk about my passions instead of just individual stories that I don't know everything about. That's going to do it, folks. That's all we got. That's all the stuff that I have prepared today on the show. Oh, Pat Cooper dead. Why is that still there? We got to get rid of that. Sorry about the trouble that we had with the chat room. I don't know what's going on with the chat room today, but all I can imagine is that it's going to be fine tomorrow. These things go. These glitchy things, they just happen on their own. Tip the show if you can. We haven't pushed for that much today, but we are in the middle of a new month. So if you can drop a little something in the Venmo or the Cash App, that would be really appreciated. Treat me like I'm your bartender. Treat me like I'm your pizza delivery guy, whatever. Every little bit helps to keep this little engine that could trucking along. Let me look really quickly and see if anything new has happened, as I'm wont to do. Downloading. Oh, I know what I can talk about. Hold on. Give me a second here. Give me a second here. I'm trying to pull something up. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Tip the show, all that stuff. Yeah, please help out if you can. I appreciate it. Thank you. And there ain't nothing there, Oh, wait, where did Frank Clark go? Did Frank Clark? We got some movement. We got some NFL movement. Frank Clark is signing with the Denver Broncos. All right. There you go. That'll work. Was thinking, he might be one of our bear pickups because we do need a little bit of, sack pressure. We need a little bit of help there. We need to, didn't address that. Although we are going to probably address our pass rush in next year's NFL draft, of which we have 2 first-round picks. So, we'll be good next year. We'll be good. We'll be fine. You know what I did last night? I caught the first episode of it, and all the episodes are up. It's 3 parts, 1 hour each. Netflix. We talked about this a couple of days ago. I think it was just last week, maybe even. Netflix has a new 3-part docu-series simply called Arnold, about Arnold Schwarzenegger, about his life. It's all him on camera, first person, telling you the stories. And let me tell you something. I typically do not enjoy those kinds of docs or biopics because I tend to think that the individual is going to hedge some of the more interesting things because of humiliation or embarrassment or whatever. That is not the case with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I can tell you after watching the very first episode, it's really good. It's really good. It's really interesting. It is if you have, here's what really sold it on me, because obviously Arnold Schwarzenegger has signed some sort of a deal with Netflix, because all of a sudden all of the Arnold Schwarzenegger films from the 80s and 90s are being heavily promoted on Netflix. He's got this new thing, Fubar, which is a Netflix original thing. And now he's got this 3-part Arnold doc. So obviously he's made a deal with Netflix. The people who created this documentary, Arnold, this 3-part docuseries, it's the same. It's called, it's produced by the Defiant Ones production team. If you watched on HBO a couple of years ago, there was a tremendous docuseries, one of the best that I've ever seen. So fascinating, so good. This one was in about 5 or 6 parts, and it was called The Defiant Ones. And it was about the relationship between music industry executive Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre, and how together they created Beats. But it also takes a look at both of their entire careers, where these 2 guys came from, when they hooked up and became friends. This white Italian dude from Brooklyn in the 1970s, suddenly becomes this best friend to this hip hop icon in Dr. Dre of the 1980s. Really good. So if you saw the Defiant Ones, that's the story of Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre and how they created beats and became billionaires together. So good. So if you've seen that, you know the quality. You know what I'm talking about. There's a quality, there's a vibe, there's a realness. Same people who created and executive produced the Defiant Ones on HBO, created and produced the Arnold docuseries on. So it's got that same vibe. So far, so good. I've only seen one episode, 55 minutes long. The first episode covered all about, Arnold's father and his mother and his brother and what his childhood was like. And, these decisions that he made about himself very early on. Very interesting. Arnold's quite a man. Arnold is quite a, and then it takes you through his early days in bodybuilding and why he got into bodybuilding and the people who helped him along the ways. And it ends, or at least the first episode, he's now come to America and he's first stepping into Gold's Gym there in Venice Beach, a gym that he made famous, over the years as so good, so interesting. And whatever, I don't know what you think. How can you think badly of Arnold? I was just going to say, whatever you think of Arnold Schwarzenegger, who thinks badly of Arnold? He seems like a good dude, right? I mean, am I missing something? Did he do something that I'm supposed to hate him for? Because honestly, I'm watching this man and I'm like, And look, I'm going to tell you, he's an admirable guy. This is a guy to be admired. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger is a man to be admired. And yeah, I know about how he cheated on his wife and knocked up his housewife and then raised that son, or, loves that son, Joseph, just like I know about all that. So he's complicated. I mean, just because you admire someone doesn't mean that you require perfection in the people you admire. If you require perfection in those that you look up to, then you're not looking up at anybody, because nobody is perfect. Everybody is complicated. So yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger is someone to be admired. At least after watching the first episode, the way he talks about stuff, the way he talks about attacking life, the way he looks at other people as human beings. I mean, he's great. It seems really great. So if you're interested, I'm only one episode in. I'll probably knock off another one tonight. And then maybe be done with it. But it's a new docuseries there on Netflix. I think it just debuted last night. I think last night was the night it first posted. It's called Arnold on Netflix. Very interesting. Cannot wait to get into the stuff about him knocking up the housekeeper. You remember Will and Grace? Remember the housekeeper in Will and Grace? Like, whenever I think of the housekeeper that Arnold knocked up, I always think of her. Rosita? Was that her name in Will and Grace? I always think of Rosita. But then I will tell you, man, when you see, and this isn't just, because I saw clips in this documentary. This has been for the last 5 years. Almost any time you see Arnold Schwarzenegger out in the wild, you know who he's with? He's with his son, Joseph. The one that, he knocked up the housekeeper with, that Joseph Banya. They're like, of all of Arnold Schwarzenegger's kids, the bastard or whatever, that one, that's the one that he seems to be closest to. And he had said, I remember him saying once, Arnold Schwarzenegger saying once, explaining why are they so close. And Arnold Schwarzenegger said, well, Joseph is the only one that's into fitness and bodybuilding. And like Joseph Banya is like, he looks like his dad and he's like all muscular and all that kind of stuff. So Arnold gets to go work out with, this kid all the time, and they become really close and they ride bikes. There's always pictures of them riding bikes around LA. But also it dawns on me that, man, maybe that kid just is into that because he's just so desperate for attention from his dad. Whatever. It seems to have worked. Yeah, they seem very happy. They seem like and also, that Arnold Schwarzenegger has to be a good dude because of what he did to his wife, Maria Shriver. They were married for 20 years and he knocks up the housekeeper. And then you see depictions of them today. They're divorced and they've moved on and all that stuff. But they're like really good friends. Like, you can tell that Maria still likes him. Like, even no matter what he did. So he must be a pretty decent guy. He seems to have a really big heart, and he seems to have an incredible head on his shoulders. Arnold Schwarzenegger, impressive guy. And yeah, so far, someone that I'm starting to admire. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. We're going to be back tonight at 9 o'clock for Pugs and Parker. That's every Monday through Thursday at 9 p.m. Current events, hot topics, lifestyle talk, that kind of thing. I didn't love last night's Pugs and Parker. I didn't love it. I don't remember why I didn't love it, but I just felt like there was a lot of like, yeah. I don't know. All right, folks, that's going to do it. See you tonight at 9. Appreciate you so much hanging with me today. Sorry about the chat room issues. I'm sure those will be fixed. I'll do nothing. They'll just one day be fixed. It'll just be fixed. All right, bye, everybody. Have a good one. Appreciate you. See you tonight at 9 o'clock. Or if you can't make that, see you again tomorrow for more High Noon, the High Noon Report with me, Pugs Moran, Monday through Fridays, 5 to noon, right here on the Radio Misfits podcast platform, RadioMisfits.com. Thank you to Sacred Oils as well. We always forget about that. No, we don't forget about it because it scrolls at the bottom of the show. Sacred Oils is located at 13740 Midway Road. That's in Dallas, or Farmers Branch, if you will. Give them a call at 469. That's 469-951 3910. That's 469-951-3910. Sacred Oils, 13740 Midway Road in Farmers Branch. Tell them I sent you. Say Pugs20. Get yourself a nice little 20% discount. That's it. We're out. Love you guys. Bye.
I don't have the greed. Down the road I'll travel, far from the comfort nest. I am on a never-ending quest. Tomorrow is another day, the best is yet to come. I have found a different way, so baffling to some. I can smile a little now, things are going good. I always had to be on guard, that is understood. Down the road I'll travel, far from the comfort nest. I am on a never-ending quest. I am on a never-ending quest.